All right, let's just start with a really big question. What if the entire way we build software is just fundamentally broken? Today, we're not just looking at some new, flashy programming language. No, we're exploring an idea called Orvexa, which is basically a proposal to rebuild our entire digital world from the ground up, using a new language for reality itself.
I mean, let's be real. We have all felt this pain, right? Our digital lives are built on a mountain of patches and quick fixes. We are constantly fighting data that's out of sync. We're plugging one security hole after another. And honestly, our most critical systems feel like they could just fall over at any second. So the real question is, why is it so incredibly hard to build things that are just reliable?
And this slide, this right here, gets to the absolute heart of the problem. On the left, that's the world we live in now, the fragmentation model. It's a total mess of separate boxes, UI, logic, state, all tangled together with what is basically digital glue. But on the right, you see the proposed fix, the existence model, a single stable core of truth, of existence, with everything else just being a view or a projection of that core.
So let's dig into that fragmentation model. What is it really? Well, it's this idea that we should separate everything, the user interface, the data, the business logic, the automated bots, into all these different silos. The problem is, by doing that, we're actually designing chaos and failure right into our systems from day one.
You know, the issue isn't really the specific languages we use, whether it's Solidity or Reacts or anything else. The real problem is the mental model we're all stuck in. It forces us to create these incredibly complex patchworks. Think about it. Our best apps are just these tangled webs of API calls and state management libraries held together by hope. It makes it almost impossible to know how the system really works, let alone why it keeps breaking.
Okay, so if that's the mess we're in, what's the way out? Well, this is where Orvexa comes in. And you have to understand, it's not just another programming language. It's called a declarative existence language, and that's a huge shift in thinking. Instead of telling the computer what to do step by step, you're describing what things are, the fundamental rules of your world.
In the world of Orvexa, everything, and I mean everything, begins with the entity. Now, don't just think of this like a class or an object in code. No, it's way deeper. It's a fundamental unit of existence. A person, a car, a building, a contract, a rule, they're all entities, each with its own undeniable reality.
And what's so cool is how an entity is defined. Its state, its behavior, and its constraints. These things create its actual reality. How it looks, whether it's on a website, in a 3D world, or through an API, that's just a projection. It's a shadow cast by the real thing. The core existence dictates the appearance, not the other way around. That's a game changer.
Let's make this real. Imagine building a cafe in a digital world. The old way, you'd have totally separate code for the UI, for the game logic, the database, the economy. It'd be a mess. But with Orvexa, you just model the transitions of existence. Buying land is just an event that changes a parcel entity. Construction is just an entity transforming from a construction site into a building. It's all one unified logical flow.
Now, thinking this way has some massive implications. And maybe the biggest one of all is how it completely flips the script on security. With Orvexa, security isn't something you bolt on at the end. It's baked in. It's part of the system's DNA from the very beginning.
I love this quote because it gets right to the point. This isn't about trying to write bug-free code or having better auditors. The whole goal is to create a system where the most common, most devastating vulnerabilities aren't just hard to pull off. They are architecturally impossible.
And here's the first pillar of that security. It's state first. In traditional smart contracts, your code just runs, and kind of as a side effect, it messes with the state. But in Orvexa, the state is the single absolute source of truth. Your code can't just change it directly. All it can do is request a transition to a new valid state, and the system itself is the gatekeeper that verifies and allows it.
This is such a massive difference. In a language like Solidity, you're constantly writing little security checks inside your functions, like require MSG sender equals owner, and you just have to pray you remembered to put it everywhere you needed it. In Orvexa, you don't write a check. You declare a universal law of existence for that entity. It's not a suggestion. It's like a law of physics. It can't be forgotten, and it can't be broken.
Okay, let's talk about a classic crypto nightmare, the reentrancy attack. This is the one that's led to hundreds of millions of dollars in losses. It's where an attacker tricks a contract into letting them call a function over and over again before the first call is even finished, usually to drain all the money out. It is a terrifying bug.
So how does Orvexa stop this? Simple. It makes it impossible. State transitions are atomic. That's a fancy word, but it just means the whole change happens all at once and it's completely finished before anything else can happen. The state is updated and the books are closed before any external call is made. The window of opportunity for the attack literally never opens. The vulnerability is just gone.
All right, another huge source of hacks, access control bugs. This is the classic oops moment. A developer just forgets to add a permission check to one function out of hundreds. It's such a simple, human mistake, but it can literally bring down an entire project.
Orvexa's solution is just so elegant. Instead of scattering permissions checks all over your code, you define permissions one time as a core property of the entity itself. You declare who can do what at the most fundamental level. And then that rule is automatically, universally enforced for every single interaction with that entity forever. It's impossible to forget the check because you never had to write it in the first place.
This table really sums it all up, doesn't it? We're moving from a world where security is this constant stressful checklist for a developer to a world where security is a fundamental built-in property of the universe you're creating. This changes everything. Auditing is no longer about hunting for tiny bugs in thousands of lines of code. It's about verifying the core laws of the system. You know, this brings us to a much bigger, more philosophical point. We're not really just comparing programming languages here. We're comparing two totally different philosophies for how to build things in the digital world.
And the difference is critical. Look, traditional tools like React and Solidity, they're fantastic for one thing, building products and shipping them fast. But Orvexa is playing a totally different game. It's designed for building the foundational systems of our future. Things like entire digital economies, new forms of global governance, or massive persistent virtual worlds that need to last and evolve for decades. And here's the thing, Orvexa isn't meant to exist in a vacuum. It's actually just one piece of a much, much larger vision. It's the foundation for a complete ecosystem, designed from the ground up to power this next generation of technology.
So here's how the whole stack fits together. You've got Orvexa, the language you use to define the what, the laws of your universe. Then you have Devilan, which is like a universal translator that figures out how to actually run those laws on any blockchain or server. And finally, you have SiriusMR, which is the high-performance engine, the power plant, needed for the really heavy stuff like complex simulations and metaverse physics.
This quote just nails the ambition of the whole project. This isn't about building another decentralized app or a slightly better website. The goal here is to create a framework for building and running entire digital realities, complete with their own economies, their own physics, and their own unbreakable rules.
So really, it leaves us with this one big question to chew on. Are we going to keep building our digital future with complex, fragile, imperative code? Or are we going to shift to a whole new paradigm where we simply define the nature of existence itself and let our systems manage the rest? It's a pretty wild idea, and it's one that could completely reshape everything we think we know about technology. Thanks for tuning into this explainer.